Hello, everybody. Hopefully, you can hear me and see me. Welcome to the Windows Central podcast, starring just me today. Dan is still traveling from the Qualcomm Summit, and so it's just going to be me. We do have a segment with Daniel. It's an interview with Qualcomm. You may have seen it. It's already up on the YouTube channel, but if you haven't, it will also be integrated at the end of this episode of the podcast. But the rest of it will be me just talking about this week's big news. Give me 1 sec to load up my sound recorder so we can get started there. I also actually need to tweak the sound, don't I? Because I haven't done that yet. Give me 1 second. Right, let's see here. You may also hear that I'm not well today. I'm quite sick, but we're going to try and push through it. With Zach Bowden. Let's see what the topics today. Snapdragon X Elite. AI features coming to vNext. Xbox and marketing reorg. What was the other thing? What's next for Windows? And more. Where's the YouTube link? There it is. Is this the new look / overlay? No. It's just for this week because I didn't have the single ones that we normally use, so I just had to quickly throw it together in the editor. If you like it, though, maybe it can be. Where on earth is my tab gone? There it is. Is that fine? That's probably fine. Oh wait, Windows vNext. That's probably better. Okay, good. Share now. Sweet. Oh, there's also a sponsorship that I'm supposed to be reading. I don't know where my... I'll just do it on here. Sorry about this, everybody. It's quite difficult hosting and producing your own podcast. Where is the thingy? Oh, good. I don't actually have Google Drive on here. Of course I don't. Hello to everyone in chat. Thank you for joining us. I've lost... Oh, there it is. Never mind, it's right here. Where do you store your laptops? I store mine on the floor because there's no room to put them anywhere else. I'm also drinking a tea just to keep my throat from not burning because, like I said, I'm quite sick today. Lots of interesting stuff to talk about. And of course, this Surface is out of battery. You'd think I wasn't here 30 minutes ago trying to prep for this podcast. I promise you I was. 2FA. That's the most annoying thing in the world. Yep. Thank you. I predict we will begin in less than 2 minutes. Didn't you consider getting somebody as a replacement for today, like Jazz or something else? Everybody is too busy to be on this podcast, so it's just me. Hey, the alternative was not doing a podcast. I considered it greatly, but I figured this week's news was quite big, and since we've actually missed quite a few weeks previously when there was big news, couldn't keep missing the big week, so we're doing one solo. Don't worry, my solo podcasts are famous for being entertaining, I hope. All right, I am ready to start, so we will be getting started now. Welcome to the Windows Central podcast, episode 330 for October 27th, 2023. I'm your host, Zach Bowden, and today we're going to be talking about Qualcomm's Snapdragon Summit and its new X Elite processor, the future of Windows on ARM, what's next for Windows, according to Microsoft at least, it's Microsoft's internal Xbox and marketing reorg, including Chris Capicella departing the company, and probably more. So thank you for joining us. You may notice that I'm not Daniel Rubino, and that's because Daniel's not here this week. He was at Qualcomm Summit, and I believe it's a 12-hour flight for him to get from there back home, and I think as of right now, he is flying, so he wasn't able to join us. But don't worry about that. I'm here to do the hosting and to talk about all of this week's big news. Now, I am a little bit poorly. You may hear it in my voice. Do apologize for that. I'll try my best not to sound too gross in the mic. But let's dive straight into our first story of the day, the Qualcomm Snapdragon Summit, and indeed the Snapdragon X Elite processor. Now, even though I said Dan isn't on this podcast, he did pre-record an interview with Qualcomm, and I will be inserting that at the end of this show, so you will hear his voice at some point. And in that interview conversation, he talks to one of Qualcomm's executives about the new X Elite. He goes into a lot more technical detail. I think for this discussion here, we're just going to go over the sort of main beats of the announcement, because this is all really anyone cares about. The X Elite processor, or the system on a chip, is Qualcomm's answer to Apple Silicon. It's finally here. It's finally official. Windows and ARM is about to get good. You know, we've been looking to this day for quite a while now, I feel like. Ever since Apple came out of Apple Silicon in 2020 or 2019, whenever it was, the Windows PC space was sort of taken by surprise, I think, by Apple's Silicon and whatnot. And these last few years has been the PC industry playing catch up. And every new chip Intel released, every new chip AMD released, and indeed every new chip Qualcomm released was not very good in comparison to whatever Apple Silicon was doing at the time. You know, we started with the M1, then went to the M1 Pro, M1 Max, M1 Ultra, and now we're on the M2 series. M3 is rumored to be announced on October 30th, although it's not expected to be a huge upgrade over M2, so the announcements around Snapdragon X Elite should still sort of hold up. But the main takeaway here is the Snapdragon X Elite system on a chip finally trades punches equally with Apple Silicon. Not in every benchmark. Some benchmarks, the X Elite beats Apple M2. Others, it's the other way. The Apple M2 beats X Elite. But that's fine. I think that's okay, because previously, with Apple Silicon, it was just Apple Silicon punching down on everybody else, and nobody was able to get a swing in. But now we finally have PC chips from Qualcomm that will be able to trade punches, and that, I think, is the most important part about this announcement. So what exactly is the Snapdragon X Elite? So Daniel wrote up the major sort of announcement post for this, and he says it can beat Apple's M2 Max, Intel i9, and it's a reinvigorated chip, a revolutionary chip, I guess, for Windows on ARM. This is the Windows on ARM chip Microsoft was wishing it had 3 years ago when Apple unveiled Apple Silicon. You know how everybody complains about Windows on ARM being slow or having bad emulation? That mainly came down to the chips not being very good. Up until now, Qualcomm was just using sort of amped up smartphone chips, more or less, and you know, that didn't play out too well for Qualcomm or Windows PCs in general. You know, OEMs were quite worried about, or, you know, they were very conservative when it came to adopting Windows on ARM. We didn't see many Windows on ARM laptops from the likes of Dell. You know, HP were there in the early days, and Lenovo jumped on board, but we never saw more than 1 or 2 Windows on ARM products a year, maybe every 2 years from those OEMs. Dell never got on board until last year with that Dell Inspiron 14, which wasn't even announced. It just sort of came out, and that's the only Windows on ARM product Dell has released since the Windows RT days. Obviously, Microsoft was there as well with the Surface Pro X in 2019. But even Microsoft has been quite conservative. We've only seen ARM in a specific Surface line, that being the Surface Pro. We've not seen ARM in Surface Laptop or ARM in Surface Book or any of the other Surface devices Microsoft has had on the market over the years. It was only ever Surface Pro, first with the Surface Pro X, and then with the Surface Pro 9 5G. But that will be changing with the Snapdragon X Elite. In fact, there are 9 OEMs building devices with Snapdragon X Elite system on a chip, or at least X series chips that will be launching in mid-2024. So those are Acer, Asus, Dell, HP, Honor, Lenovo, Surface, Samsung, and Xiaomi. So that's all the big heavy hitters, right? That's all the names you want to see on a list of OEMs, a list about OEMs building hardware for Windows on ARM. Even Dell is in there, and I think HP and Lenovo have both said they're planning to ship multiple PCs with ARM processors in 2024, not just one, which again is another huge step forward for Windows on ARM. Like I said, up until now, it was more or less just you know, if Lenovo was to release one, it would be, that's it, here's the Lenovo ThinkPad, for example, X13. That's the only device we're releasing this year with Windows on ARM. Hopefully, starting in 2024, that will no longer be the case. And so The chip itself is fantastic. It's a 4 nanometer chip with a NPU that supports 45 tops worth of power. Now, I don't know what tops means. Apparently, this is a number that's actually been in use for quite some time. Versus the previous Snapdragon 86 Gen 3 processor, which I think was only like 4 or something tops. It's a massive jump in performance for the NPU specifically. Now, obviously, Qualcomm talks a lot about the NPU. They are touting this chip as an AI-based chip, and that ties quite heavily into Windows vNext, whatever the next version of Windows ends up being. Microsoft is already, as we know, building out the next version of Windows to be an AI-first OS. And a lot of deep integration we're going to see with AI functionality is going to be made possible by this new generation of NPU chips, starting with the Snapdragon X Elite. Now, I'm sure Intel's going to get involved with this as well, but as of right now, this is Qualcomm's story, and they're talking about the NPU and how that's going to sort of deliver incredible new experiences that aren't yet available on Windows because the Microsoft is still building them. I actually feel quite bad for Qualcomm. I actually feel bad for Microsoft as well, because obviously this announcement would be way more exciting if they could tell the full story in regards to kind of what experiences they're building out for Windows. Obviously they can't because Microsoft isn't ready. On the flip side, Microsoft probably wishes Qualcomm waited until spring next year to announce this, because then they could, once again, like I said, do that entire story where they announce the chips and also unveil all of the AI stuff that Microsoft is building. To my knowledge, Microsoft won't be talking about any of that until spring next year, because that's just what their schedule currently says. Maybe that will change, but I highly doubt it. So, let's see here. What do we think about the Surfaces? So, as I mentioned, obviously, Microsoft is on the list of OEMs who will be supporting the Snapdragon X system on a chip. As of right now, of course, we've not seen anything from Surface yet. Surface didn't announce any new hardware. We've had all the hardware we're going to see this year from Microsoft in the form of the Laptop Go 3 and the Laptop Studio 2. The next sort of stop for Surface hardware, to my knowledge, is unsurprisingly spring next year, likely late spring, May, June timeframe. And that's when I'm hearing Microsoft will unveil the next Surface Pro with a chip based on the Snapdragon X Elite. Now, I don't know. I mean, it's very likely that Microsoft will do what it normally does and brand it as its own chip, like for the SQ3 and whatnot. It will be an X Elite based chip, maybe with a slightly overclocked GPU or something. I don't know what will be specific about it, but it will likely be called, well, maybe not likely. Let's assume it will be called Microsoft SQ4, but they might take this opportunity to give it a new name or something. I don't know. But Surface Pro 10 with a Microsoft ARM chip based on the Snapdragon X SoC is expected next spring. But I also hear that this will be the first time Microsoft expands what is on offer with ARM in the Surface portfolio. In addition to the Surface Pro 10, I'm hearing the Surface Laptop 6 will also be available with the same Snapdragon X system on a chip based processor, which is exciting news. You know, if you're somebody who isn't a huge fan of the 2-in-1 and you've always wanted a Surface with ARM, Microsoft is actually building it, and next spring I hear is when that will be unveiled and begin shipping, likely over the summer. It will be, to my knowledge, the exact same chip found in the Surface Pro 10, so the performance should roughly be the same across both, I would guess, but it will have all the same benefits as the Snapdragon X Elite, so better efficiency, much better performance, able to trade punches with the Apple M2 and whatnot. This will be Microsoft's first true MacBook Air competitor since Apple moved to Apple Silicon. So very, very excited about that. Hopefully I'll have more to share around the next Surface Pro and Surface Laptop soon. But that's all I really know about the hardware so far. There will, of course, be Intel options for both. Intel 14th Gen, I'm hearing, will most likely be what it is. I mean, I'd be surprised if they don't use that. But yes, we will come back to the next Surface Pro and Surface Laptop at a later date. Now, this is something we talked about last week as well. The idea that this is a series of processors. Snapdragon X series is how they sort of unveiled it. And the X Elite is the first, I guess, chip they've unveiled. I actually think it's the higher end model, given the name X Elite. The series, I think, goes down from here. So we've got X Elite. Maybe it goes up by one more because Qualcomm quite clearly wants these chips to ship in more than just laptops. These will be chips you can find in desktop PCs at some point as well. And maybe they go up from there. To my knowledge, I believe the system on a chip, the X series processors, can be merged together, joined together, similar to Apple silicon with things like the M2 Max and the M2 Ultra. Apple just basically, to simplify things, merges a bunch of chips together to make a more powerful chip. And I think the Qualcomm chips here, these new ones, can do the same thing. Not only that, and Qualcomm hasn't announced this. I'm assuming they're waiting for NVIDIA to announce. But these chips support dedicated GPUs from NVIDIA. Like I said, Qualcomm hasn't announced this. It's not in any official documentation. They didn't tell press about it. If anybody asked, I'm sure they would have said no comment. But rumors suggest, and I've heard now from multiple sources, that these chips do support dedicated GPUs from NVIDIA. And I'm just guessing they're waiting for NVIDIA to be ready to unveil that. That will be super interesting because it means devices like the laptop Studio from Surface, that laptop can also move to ARM. It won't just be the devices with integrated GPUs. So Microsoft could offer a Surface Laptop Studio 3 in 2025, 2026 with a Snapdragon X Elite 2 or 3 at the time with an NVIDIA RTX 5060 or 6060, whatever's current at the time of release. That would be incredible. Obviously, you sort of lose some of the energy efficient gains you've made there when you add a power-hungry GPU to a laptop or a desktop, but those are trade-offs I think a lot of people are willing to make for those extra performance gains. So I think that's the TLDR for the X Elite stuff. Like I said, Dan gets into a lot more of the technical specifications in his interview with Qualcomm at the end of the podcast, so you can skip ahead. If you're not listening live, that is, you can skip ahead to that if you want. Or if you are listening live, you can go to our YouTube channel because the interview is already up there and you can watch video form Dan and Qualcomm discussing the X Elite. But I want to move on to still Qualcomm Summit, but more about Microsoft's involvement, because Microsoft was there on stage with Qualcomm to talk a little bit about Windows on ARM and AI and the sort of future, how they're viewing the future of the Windows platform now that Qualcomm's bringing its A game. We had two executives there, or we had the CEO, we had Satya Nadella himself there talking for a little bit, and then we also had Pavan Delavuri, I believe his last name's pronounced, I may have butchered that, and he was also there on stage to talk a little bit about how the NPU is going to enhance Windows in the future. So let's find the quotes here. So I wrote down all the quotes and whatnot, and I'll read through some of them here. I think what's super interesting here, and just to sort of give context to this, what these two people are talking about here, Satya and Pavan, they're teasing, I guess, or talking at a very surface level, their vision for what's coming next for Windows. It'd be easy to say they're talking about Windows 12, but as I have said many times, we don't know if it's going to be called Windows 12. The next version of Windows, which begins shipping in 2024, a lot of this AI stuff will begin showing up then, and so here's some of the stuff they were talking about. So we'll start with Satya Nadella. He said, Gen AI has the potential to be as big as the mobile revolution, the cloud revolution, the web and PC, that class. I think fundamentally, if you think about what the dream of computing always was, can you make interfaces much more human-friendly, much more natural? Can you augment human capability with computing? It starts with language, but it's quickly going beyond that. That will fundamentally change what an OS is, what a UI looks like, how application interaction goes. So UI change is always big, and this is a big UI change. So here he's teasing this idea of an AI-based OS that has a significantly different UX because it has AI built into it. So if we think about Windows or a desktop UX as, a taskbar along the bottom, at Windows sort of floating throughout, context menus to stand in the other, I think what Satya's suggesting here is that with AI, they can rethink that experience. It doesn't have to be that way. Maybe they have a sort of landing page. In fact, later on, he mentions, if we scroll down here, he says, the marquee experience for us is going to be Copilot. When Windows first came together, we had the Start button. The Copilot is like the Start button. So, for example, I go there and express my intent, and it either navigates me to an application or it brings the application to the Copilot. So it helps me learn, query, create, and completely changes the user's habits. So this idea of there being a sort of landing page with an AI assistant sort of there for you, and you can just sort of ask it or tell it what you want to do, and the Copilot can go and fetch those specific things for you. That's, I think, what he's teasing there. And while I don't think that experience specifically is coming in Windows Hudson Valley, I do think it's something they're looking at a little bit beyond 2024, maybe 2025, 2026. We know that I know that there are multiple versions of Windows in development currently. We have obviously Hudson Valley, which is the next version of Windows for you and I, the successor to Windows 11, if you will. But then there's another version of Windows they're building, which we've sort of talked about a bit before, this sort of web-first version of Windows, that I think they could use this to test out this unique interface, this user experience. If they could rebuild the shell from the ground up with AI at the forefront, they could really go all in and try this new thing that they appear to be teasing here at the Qualcomm Summit. So I'll be very interested to see how that goes. Obviously, as soon as I know more about it, I will be sure to tell you. But if we move on to Pavan's comments here, he talks more about the NPU and hybrid applications. Now, hybrid is something I've talked about maybe last week, maybe the week before. When the whole rumor about Windows 12 being a subscription-based OS came about, we talked about this. And I said, to my knowledge, the next version of Windows, Microsoft is focusing quite heavily on hybrid experiences. Hybrid meaning things that happen both locally and reach out to the cloud. Now, hybrid experiences aren't uncommon. They're already a thing, right? A web browser is technically a hybrid experience, although the apps are rendered locally. Anything you view within it has come from the internet. So it's talking to a server somewhere else to bring you that information. But what Microsoft is talking about here is more of that happening throughout the entire system, especially when it comes to AI experiences. Right now, for example, Copilot is an entirely cloud-based experience. To my knowledge, there's no local processing that the AI does. Everything you ask it, whether it be a sort of basic local command or a complex query that would make sense reaching out to the internet for, all of it has to reach out to the cloud to be processed, rendered, understood, and then sent back to you with an answer. And there's a big problem with that. Obviously, for Microsoft, the big problem is that's a lot of data that it needs to process. Not very energy efficient. It's quite bad for the carbon footprint. The other thing is, for the end user, it's slow. And also privacy concerns, right? A lot of people are quite wary about having to send everything to the cloud to be processed. They'd rather, if they could, have at least basic queries rendered locally on device. And I think this is what Microsoft is sort of talking about here when it comes to hybrid experiences, this idea that an AI experience, whether it be Copilot or another built-in system functionality, for basic stuff or things that it doesn't necessarily need to reach out to the internet for, the NPU, the on-device system on a chip, should be able to handle it. And I think that's kind of what they're looking at here. We've seen Qualcomm and we've seen Microsoft demo parts of an LLM or rendered locally on device without an internet connection. They demoed it at Qualcomm Summit, for example. And I think this is kind of what they want to go for with Copilot, where if you ask Copilot to, turn my dark theme on, there's no reason the Copilot needs to reach out to the cloud to understand that query. That should be something it can process locally versus having to reach out to the cloud for. And obviously, processing it locally speeds up the process. One of the reasons why Copilot is so slow is because it has to reach out and load and figure out what it is you've asked and then send back an answer. If it was just doing it all locally, it could pass it to the NPU, pass it back much quicker, especially if it's for a simple criteria or command. I think that experience makes more sense. So this idea of hybrid experiences is going to be massive for the next version of Windows. And it's great for Microsoft as a business because, like I said, it reduces their carbon footprint. But it also probably means they get to charge a subscription service for some of these AI functionalities, right? That's almost certainly where they're going with this. Even on PCs where an NPU would likely be able to handle most of these things, I'm sure they're going to want Windows to still have to reach out to the cloud for some things, just so they can charge you a subscription service. Obviously, being able to reach out to the cloud is beneficial because for PCs that don't have NPUs, for example, they will most likely be able to utilize at least some of these new AI features. So certainly not all of them, I don't think, but a lot of the next-gen AI stuff they're building, if there is a subscription for it, PCs that don't have an NPU, like the Laptop Go here, I could subscribe to, say, Microsoft's AI subscription service and still have those functions on device. But then if I also bought like a Surface Pro 10 or Surface Laptop 6, which does have an NPU in it, I might not necessarily need to rely on the cloud subscription service to utilize some of those functions. So obviously, everybody wins. Microsoft wins as a subscription service that you can subscribe to. The end user wins because if they do want those AI features, they can subscribe to that, or they can buy a new laptop with an NPU. Or if you don't want to buy anything, don't, and you can continue using Windows without any AI functionality. I also do think that this idea of hybrid experiences extends beyond AI. I think it's going to also come down to applications. We talked about this before. Windows 365, this idea of cloud PCs is sort of the start of this, where in the future, Microsoft will most likely integrate cloud PCs quite deeply with the local experience so that they become indiscernible to the end user. You'll be able to, for example, install an app to your cloud PC and have that app show up on every local desktop you have in the start menu. So if you are running, say, on a laptop Go, for example, and it's connected to the internet, but it's, a local version of Windows, and you're signed in with your Microsoft account, which also just happens to have a cloud PC subscribed to it, any app you install to that cloud PC shows up in your start menu, and you can click on it and it will load up the app, place it on your local desktop as if it was running locally, but it's not. It's obviously running in the cloud PC. It's just being displayed locally on your device. I foresee that being a big part of the next versions of Windows as well. When I say next version of Windows, I should clarify. I'm talking about whatever comes in 2024 onwards. So if we assume the next version of Windows is Windows 12, that won't just be it, right? There will be more updates after that add additional things. So Windows 12 version 1 is 2024. Some of this stuff will probably be 2025 or maybe even 2026. Versions of Windows that come after, or updates to Windows that come after the initial release. Remember, Windows is a service. There's no such thing as Windows being done anymore, and that counts for major new versions of the product. When that launches, when Windows 11 launched, it wasn't done. It's still not done now. We're still getting new features every few weeks, for what it feels like at least. And so the same will almost certainly be the case with whatever it is that comes next. Now, give me 1 second here to take a sip of my drink. See, we've not got a co-host to bounce off. They can't just fill in the empty talk there. Right, so what does this mean for the future of Windows and Windows as a whole? Because, actually, real quick, before we move on from that, let's see, are there any more? I've lost my tab now. There it is. So the comments about Pavan, as I mentioned, he was talking about hybrid experiences. He actually quite handily lists why hybrid is useful to both end users and companies. So he says it has many advantages: enhanced privacy, cost savings, latency benefits, performance optimizations, and this notion of extended personalization. Now, that last note, this notion of extended personalization, I don't know what he means by that. I think what perhaps he's hinting at is a version of Copilot that is able to remember you as a person and sort of learn who you are, understand your habits, and make your OS experience more useful across devices. This idea, Cortana tried to be your virtual assistant and it knew your name and stuff. Very surface level things. I think with Copilot and LLM technology in general, you can take that to the next level. Right now, Copilot very much doesn't do that. It doesn't learn who you are. It doesn't know who you are. Every time you approach it with a new session, it's as if you're a new person, right? It only remembers the context that you have given it within a session, within that 30 messages, whatever it is, limit. Once you do that, you start a new topic. It's as if you're a new person. It's never met you before. And that's fine for now, I think. But if Microsoft really wants to position this AI as an assistant to you as a user, it needs to, I think, learn who you are. It needs to know your name, as an example. But it also needs to know how you use computers. It needs to know how you sort of understand who you are, how you type, what your humor's like almost. It also needs to know your workflow. If you use a PC for work, for example, you probably have a habit of going into a certain app in the morning, checking email, for example, or if you're a creator, opening up XYZ, doing some drawing in there, doing this over there. The Copilot should be able to learn that and adjust the interface so that you can jump into things that you want to be doing at certain points in the day much quicker. This is something Microsoft I know is working on, where the AI is able to sort of analyze, I guess, what's on screen at all times and remember it. And then it can sort of turn it into a searchable moment that you can go back to. So, if you use Windows Search, for example, right now Windows Search is kind of rubbish. We all know Windows Search isn't very good. This idea that Microsoft could build AI into Windows Search so that you could open it and just talk to it like a human and go, hey, I was looking at a file 3 weeks ago about quarterly earnings for Amazon. can you show me that? If you just talk to it like a human, Windows Search can then go, all right, so he's looking for a file about Amazon quarterly earnings shown to him 2-3 months ago, or 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it is I said. Then it would list all of those files that mention Amazon quarterly earnings that was viewed by the user 2 to 3, whatever it is I said, weeks or months ago. That is a search query that you can't do right now. If you try to do that in Windows Search will be like, what the hell are you talking about? I have no idea. But this idea of natural language, using AI to transform human speech and human habits into things a computer understands, is what Microsoft is looking at doing with this next version of Windows. And so I think that's what both Pavan and Satya have been teasing at Qualcomm Summit this year. I mean, he even says here, as we think about the future of these Windows devices, you'll be able to personalize every interaction. The AI is going to be able to orchestrate across multiple apps, services, and devices, functioning as an agent in your life that can connect and keep context across entire workflows. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is what he's saying, right? This idea that an assistant can understand you, learn your habits, present to you things based on how you talk as a human versus having to understand how a computer operates to be able to find things. One of the reasons why Windows Search is so bad is because humans don't understand computers, and Windows has its own algorithm that nobody understands. As let's be fair, like it's wild. You can type calculator and it'll bring up the clock app for some reason. So keep that in mind for when we start talking about the next version of Windows in the next few weeks and months, because I think what Pavan and Satya mentioned on stage at Qualcomm is a massive sort of teaser as to the kind of stuff they're hoping to build out with Windows vNext. Now, on the subject of Windows vNext, there's not too much more to share right now. We know it's in development internally. It's in active development now, I believe is the phrase, which means pretty much all hands on deck. I think there's still a few teams working on Windows 11 moment stuff, so I think we're getting another moment early next year, likely February timeframe. But I think that might be the last one until vNext is ready. vNext, I think, is supposed to be finalized in spring, which would make sense if if new PCs are shipping in the summer, this new AI PCs, then obviously Windows vNext would need to be done before then. But yeah, I think April timeframe is when they're sort of expecting to be done with the next version of Windows. But of course, like I said, Windows as a service, Windows is never done. That's just a milestone for a shipping build. But they will continue to, add features to it and stuff over the summer into the fall and beyond. So when we get a chance to talk more about Windows vNext, we will for sure. But I think that about wraps up all of our Qualcomm and AI stuff. I'm going to quickly read the sponsorship here, and then we'll move on to our next topic. When it comes to hiring, don't wait for great talent to find you. Find them first with Indeed. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed is a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. We streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you match candidates, and with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed. One of the things we love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy, because candidates you invite to apply are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to Indeed's data. When you get one step closer, they get you one step closer to the hire by immediately matching you with quality candidates. And even better, Indeed is the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring platform, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. So join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/WCP. That offer is good for a limited time only. So that's a $75 credits now at Indeed.com/WCP. Just go to Indeed.com/WCP and support the show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/WCP. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire, you need Indeed. Thank you, Indeed, for sponsoring. And now here's a quick picture of Joe Belfiore holding Windows phones, because I need to quickly wipe my nose. There we go. So, moving on to our next topic. What do we have here? Let's talk about the reorg. Microsoft announced a reorg this week for the gaming and marketing orgs at Microsoft. And so this is quite a big change here. And it's interesting because it's more changes internally after the changes we just had with Panos Panay leaving. You'd think they'd do this all at the same time, but I guess Panos leaving was a little bit of a shock to most people at the company, and so they weren't ready to to jiggle everything about yet. But it does appear now there are more changes coming. It starts with Chris Capicella, who was the previous chief marketing officer. Microsoft has been for many years now. He's been at Microsoft for 32 years in a number of different roles, but his most recent role was, of course, chief marketing officer. He has announced that he's leaving Microsoft. He's currently in the process of departing the company. He's transitioning his role to Takeshi Numoto, and so that's quite interesting there. So, I met Chris once. I think Chris was a really great guy. I'm not too sure how people feel about his marketing capabilities, though. I know a lot of people have never been quite okay with how Microsoft markets consumer stuff, for example, especially when it comes to Surface. I think one of people's biggest criticisms around Surface marketing is that they don't do enough of it. I'm not sure if that's Chris Cabicella's problem or if he's to blame for that. I'm sure there's multiple people to blame for that. But with his departing, perhaps this is a moment of change with how Microsoft looks at marketing for consumer stuff. Maybe we will start seeing more Surface marketing going forward now that we have new leadership in the marketing division. If we go along here, let's actually read out what Satya Nadella said to his team about the reorg here. Chris Capicella has done a terrific job as our CMO, driving revenue and brand love for the company. The numerous accolades Microsoft continues to receive in terms of brand recognition and marketing awards are impressive and a testament to a strong team he has built. I am pleased to announce that Takeshi Numoto is being promoted to Executive Vice President, Chief Marketing Officer, reporting to me being Satya Nadella. Takeshi has been at the heart of our cloud transformation. He's a fantastic systems thinker who works end-to-end across all functions from engineering to finance to operations to sales, and he's great. And he's built a great team of marketing leaders. I'm thrilled for him to step into the CMO role for Microsoft and drive our vision forward. In addition to this, Satya also announced that Yusuf Mehdi is being promoted to the Executive Vice President, Consumer Chief Marketing Officer. In the memo, Satya says he will join the senior leadership team and report to Takeshi. Yusuf will serve as the champion for our end user experiences and build on his work launching several of our AI-powered services to lead Microsoft Copilot product marketing. He will also continue to lead our search, ad, and news and devices and creativity, customer solutions areas. My goodness. And with our recently closed acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, we are doubling down on our gaming business. To realize our growth potential, Amy Silverman and her consumer sales organization will move to report to Phil Spencer, CEO of gaming. Amy will continue to drive all our consumer sales, including our devices and creativity CSA, through our direct and partner sales channels. So that there in itself is a fascinating announcement. So what they're doing here, by the sounds of things, is they're moving the consumer sales organization under gaming. Consumer sales organization handles Surface marketing, for example. Any marketing you see of Surface PCs to consumers, I'm pretty sure that org was handling that. And now they're moving under gaming. Is this a good idea? I don't know. I think of all Microsoft orgs, Xbox does the best at marketing to consumers. I'm always quite fascinated by their holiday sort of marketing push that they do for Xbox. It's always quite emotional and whatnot. And that's all Xbox, right? And so maybe moving consumer marketing onto the gaming division means that magic can sort of trickle down to the other areas of Microsoft's consumer products and whatnot, such as Surface and to an extent Windows and other stuff. So it remains to be seen how that change is going to affect things. I'm hoping this means we're just going to see more strong marketing for Surface and Windows. I would love to see that, especially marketed to consumers. I think that's the biggest problem Microsoft has right now, is that they don't market to consumers, and so people don't buy their stuff. Obviously, Yusuf Mehdi taking a senior leadership role is big news as well. Obviously, they announced him sort of stepping into that role of marketing Windows and Surface when Panay left, but they never mentioned him joining the senior leadership team at the time. I don't know if that's a recent development or if he was always joining the senior leadership team and they're just now making it official. But congratulations to him. He's been at Microsoft for a very long time as well. I'm not too sure. I'm hoping him in the role of marketing or a marketing role will help Windows and Surface as well. I remember didn't he do a demo during the Xbox One unveiling where he watched TV? That wasn't a great moment for Microsoft, and anyone on that stage should feel bad. So hopefully he's learned his lesson from that. But yes, so that's the reorg news. It's quite I think quite scary. I think to see what's if Microsoft is actually able to turn around its marketing woes in regards to consumer. Because again, Microsoft does a great job at marketing enterprise stuff. They've been doing it for years. If I'm watching TV, which I rarely do these days, and there's an advert comes on, it's usually for like Azure or something. I only see Microsoft enterprise products marketed. Rarely do I see the new Surface. I don't think I've ever seen a new Surface marketed on PC. Not since the Windows 8 days, for sure. I don't think I've ever seen a Windows 10 based or Windows 11 based Surface PC advertised on TV here in the UK. I know they sort of do them sometimes in the US, but to my knowledge, I don't think there's ever been a UK TV ad for Surface running Windows 10 or Windows 11. Could be wrong about that. But yes. Okay, so we are 40 minutes into the show. I think this is a good time now to turn over to that Qualcomm interview I teased at the beginning of the episode. So this is a conversation between Dan and Qualcomm about the Snapdragon X Elite. It goes into more technical details about the processor itself. Once that interview's over, I'll come back and round off the show, and we can move into Q&A. So take it away, Dan.
Hey everyone, welcome to the a new section of the Windows Central podcast. We're doing a special interview this week because of all the Qualcomm news that has come out during the Snapdragon Summit. We are graced by the presence of Kedar Khandap. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm terrible at names. But he is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Compute and Gaming at Qualcomm. So if you listen to this podcast, you know he is a person we want to be talking to with this week's news, which has been very exciting. Qualcomm has been teasing this announcement for quite some time now. First, we heard about the Nuvia acquisition in early 2021. And then, of course, there was the Orion announcement of the processor. And then they came the Snapdragon X branding for this new line of processors. And now we're hearing about the Snapdragon Elite. Kedar, thank you for joining us. Would you like to give a brief introduction and about what was announced this week?
Yes. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me on the show. Pretty excited to be here. From Qualcomm's perspective, we've been on this journey to transform the PC experience. We've been investing in this for a few years now. And right now, we're very excited to be bringing a new platform to market. It is called the Snapdragon X Elite platform. It's a part of the X series platforms that we announced recently. So very excited to be bringing some game-changing performance with the X Elite.
Yeah, so this was definitely exciting. I think, a lot of people on our podcast are big on the concept of Windows on ARM. I have, of course, been a big fan of it for many years, as Rich Woods has, the editor-in-chief over at XDA. We both always commiserate and celebrate when ARM devices come out, and sometimes they're received well, sometimes they're not, but for the last few years, it's been kind of a slow burn, and we kind of knew that one OEM would release a device, then the next gen would be another OEM, and kind of go back and forth. And we've had some really killer devices, the most recent being the Surface Pro 9 5G, which really married the that form factor with Microsoft's premium Surface Pro line. We have the Surface Pro X too, which I know is Zach's favorite device ever because it was so thin and had an awesome design. I am in agreement with him on that, although the new Pro 9 is great. But the Snapdragon X Elite. So this isn't even like a generational jump, right? This is like just a whole different thing now. It's you guys bought the company Nuvia a couple years ago, which is infamously made up of ex-Apple engineers who are the very ones who, if I recall, worked on Apple's A-series chips, which were featured in their iPhones for many years. And the A-series is what evolved into the M-series. Basically, Apple scaled up this technology and got to the M-series processor and put those into their laptops and some of their desktops. And they've been going hard at that for a while. Currently, we're at the M2 line. Rumors of an M3 is coming out. And Apple's done really well with those chips, almost too well, right? What I mean by that is I feel like they almost locked themselves into people aren't going to upgrade their laptops anytime soon. But because they've just been so good, which is a nice problem to have. And meanwhile, Microsoft has been kind of struggling a little bit here. Intel has had some issues with definitely nailing it on performance, but when it comes to efficiency, have struggled. I would say AMD is done too. I know AMD has this halo reputation of being super efficient. I haven't seen it much in laptops. Um, some of them have been good, but not like jaw-droppingly different. A lot of the times it's because they cut down on the specs. They'll use a full HD display and pack a really large battery in there, which of course makes up for the performance and the efficiencies. But with the Snapdragon X Elite, you guys, like I said, this is taking these engineers from Apple. They can't design an Apple chip, obviously, but they can kind of design around the patents and what Apple has done because they know how it works. Um, and you guys seized this opportunity, which I think was received really well because there's a couple, you know, it reaffirmed your commitment to this idea of the PC space. And Qualcomm's been saying this for years, ever since you got in. Like, this isn't an experiment for us. This is something we're going hard in. We're going to keep going after it generation after generation. And now this one seems like kind of a really big shift in terms of performance. Can you give us I guess, a walkthrough? Start a little bit with the Nuvia acquisition and just kind of how we led up to today, and then we can actually talk about the X Elite processor and what makes it different from the previous Snapdragon 8CX series.
Yeah. Then the way you should think about the Snapdragon X Elite is something that's revolutionary, right? This is something that consumers haven't had an opportunity to experience before. It's a combination of a lot of things. To start with, when we say game-changing performance, we mean it in every bit and every bit of fashion. We're talking about peak performances that are significantly better than anything that you've ever seen in the industry. We're talking 50 to 70% better, depending on which competitor you compare this against. But significantly better in terms of peak performance, significantly better in terms of efficiency. We hit peak performance at a third of the power, right? So game changing in terms of how you should think of the CPU cores in itself. These cores are designed in-house, as you alluded to some extent. And so we're talking about 12 cores, very high in performance, very efficient in power. And so we're very excited about what the CPU will bring to market. But it's more, as you know, it's more than just talking about the CPU, right? The Snapdragon X Elite will have, other than having a very powerful CPU, it will have some game-changing performance when it comes to AI. We're definitely taking the bar up significantly. We're supporting 45 tops just on the NPU, for example, the neural processing unit that's integrated in the device. It's something that nobody in the industry supports today. We're talking about efficiencies like even within the NPU, will support up to say 13 billion parameter models. And this whole AI story is changing so much that it will evolve itself into something very, very compelling. And then the third vector is, we talked about performance, we talked about AI, and the third big vector we're trying to anchor on is experiences, right? We've always focused on experiences. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to detail, whether it is how we pick the architecture to make sure that we're delivering the best performance per watt, or how we're looking at experiences that consumers don't really even need to know about the underlying technology, but it matters to them, right? I know now we talk about things like background blur and stuff like that, but this is something we supported like 10, 15 years ago in phones. We had, it was called the bokeh effect. So those were, we had AI engines, we had an NPU for many years. We just let technology run itself in the background because we're big believers in driving innovation in the industry. So a lot of these capabilities, right from whether it's a very powerful CPU core to a very powerful AI engine to delivering the best experiences that the consumer will want. So overall, we think what consumers will get to experience with the Snapdragon X Elite devices will be game changing.
Yeah, the AI stuff obviously has gotten a lot of press attention lately. We've been covering it pretty hard too. Intel just announced with Meteor Lake that, those chips will ship with an NPU, and of course, the Laptop Studio 2 famously now has an NPU built in, even though it's not technically part of the 13th gen series. I don't know how they did that, but it's kind of a cool thing. But you're right. Qualcomm has been doing AI way longer than anybody else in the field, and your AI engine has always been touted as being like much more advanced. But what the issue, of course, was there was nothing in Windows really to leverage much of it. It was kind of creeping along, but now we have this explosion. So, what do you see with the NPU kind of being used for? We know, like, okay, background blur is one, noise cancellation is another, auto framing is another one where it kind of tracks you. But I've also heard cases of running local large language models locally on the device. And, I guess the benefit here is with the NPU on the device, you don't need to send data to the cloud where it gets processed and then it comes back down, which obviously introduces two issues, latency and both privacy concerns. Where do you guys see like sort of AI being used in the PC space and say laptops, besides going beyond like just blurring your background?
Yeah, great question, Dan. I think if you look at AI and how ubiquitous it's going to be, we'll talk about AI in every single field, right? If you separate out AI as a technology and the work that we're doing, in other words, working with partners, working on all these different parameter models and working on quantizing these models and making sure they run effectively on device, all of this is the work that we do. We work with third-party developers, we make sure the ecosystem's ready. So that's the background that we enable in terms of technology and the foundational work needed to get to the experiences. But when you think of where AI is going to get used, obviously, it's going to be ubiquitous in the sense it's going to get used in manufacturing, it's going to get used in operations, it's going to get used in healthcare and medical, and you name it. There isn't a single field that is not going to use AI. So obviously, when you talk about a manufacturing floor or you talk about operations, you want to run stuff more effectively. You want to run processing on the device. People use laptops today for a lot of these functions. But now when you have AI, and we use the term more generically, but there's a lot more to it in terms of how these models are customized to run on device, to run more securely, to run more effectively. So a lot of this is the kind of the work that we are doing to enable the AI on device, but be able to use it across multiple industries and enable those ecosystem partners to be able to take advantage of what we're doing. So again, think of us as providing all of the foundational work. We want to keep the user away from the complexities. Simply put, like we enable Windows Studio effects, right? For a lot of work that happens in the background, we really don't even want the user to know. We want to deliver the best possible experience with that, and we'll do all of the underlying work that's necessary. So I think this is just the beginning. There's a lot more innovation that's going to happen in AI, and you referenced some of the AI, but I'm just going to reiterate something because I'm pretty excited about what we're offering is we are supporting a huge set of AI performance, right? We're talking about 45 tops and running 7 billion parameter models at 30 tokens per second and stuff. So when we compare this to somebody else in the industry, we're talking about something that's dramatically game changing relative to what others have to offer in this space today.
And that's super fascinating because, and to reiterate for our audience, the beauty of an NPU is it's designed specifically to run AI models versus what we've been doing up to this point, which is mostly relying either on CPU compute or GPU compute. And both of those are brute force methods that get the job done, but at the expense of using a lot of processing power to do it. Currently, my background is being blurred. It's using NVIDIA's RTX technology, but my GPU is like the size of an Xbox console, and it uses obviously a lot of power to do so, whereas an NPU is going to be much more efficient and purpose-driven for its task. So the end result here is, doing the background blurring or noise cancellation. If it relied, we've had that before in some Windows devices, but it was always relying either on the CPU or GPU, and the effect was you get stuttering and the performance wasn't as good because you're not just using your camera, you're using Microsoft Teams, you have Word open, you're doing multiple things at once, and that CPU can only do so much, whereas the NPU will be dedicated to that, freeing up the CPU and GPU. And I guess the other benefit here is that having NPUs built into these PCs by default opens up the door for developers to create new apps that then rely on those NPU technologies, and they can start to assume that the PC space, these laptops, will have this technology in there. So I imagine for photo editing is a big thing. Obviously, Qualcomm has done a lot with photography and video using AI. That's a big hot topic right now that I think most people have been, they're familiar with it, but they've also seen such dramatic changes with the recent phones where you can do just like a magic erase and like remove stuff from the background. Being able to do that on a laptop is going to be, I think, really powerful, especially not because it'll be on thin laptops, not like a gaming laptop or a workstation laptop where you have this powerful GPU doing all the work for you. Speaking of, and let's talk a little bit about sort of the architecture here. So when we talk about the Snapdragon X Elite, that, so you have the Snapdragon X series, and then Elite is just going to be one tier of that. And I presume down the road you'll announce other tiers as well. But what that is made up of course, is the Qualcomm Orion CPU, which we touched upon. There's the Qualcomm Adreno GPU, which people should be familiar with. Adreno has been the brand for a while for your GPUs. The Hexagon NPU, and then, of course, the Sensing Hub. This was kind of an interesting thing I remember doing the briefing, was the Sensing Hub. This is, if I'm correct, human presence detection, which we've seen in some other laptops too. Basically the idea of like security, where when you walk up to a device, it senses a person there, turns it on, logs you in, and can, if someone disappears, it'll lock the computer. But there was something unique that you guys are doing, which is this is always on all the time. If I'm getting that correct, can you explain a little bit about how that works?
Yeah. So you touched on quite a few interesting topics, Dan. So there is obviously the platform that we enable. We've done this in mobile for many, many years. And when we say this is the kind of legacy we want to bring from mobile into the PCs, because PCs haven't seen innovation for a long time, right? So one of the things you brought up, rightfully so, is camera. We've had cameras in phones go all the way up to 200 plus megapixels, and they've been used across the board for even casual all the way to professional photography. Same way in PCs, you should expect that we will have a dedicated camera core that will go drive experiences that are differentiated. So we talked a little bit about AI, we talked a little bit about camera, but it's how all of these are going to blend in. So simple things like face unlock, or simple things like running stuff securely through our camera pipeline, through our integrated DSPs, through the entire heterogeneous cores that we offer, also with the Sensing Hub, right? The reason why we're able to do some of these things is because these are tightly integrated with the entire platform, right? Whether it's the camera core, all of these cores talk to each other through a fabric. And that's the intelligence that we bring in that says, even though some of these subsystems may be on, we intelligently manage power along the way. Just to give you another example, right? Within the audio block, we have a small little NPU, right? That's the kind of stuff we do. So anytime that you've got an audio conversation or background, I know earlier we talked about, dogs in the background barking and how it's going to do in noise canceling. All of that, it's very common phenomena. So it's going to be able to, suppress itself with very low power states running on these blocks. So whether it's the always on camera that's tightly integrated, whether it's these NPUs that we've got integrated, or the entire heterogeneous architecture with CPU, GPU, gaming, audio, video, all of these are dedicated fixed function blocks tightly coupled to drive a low power experience.
Yeah, I think that's one reason why Qualcomm has been very successful in the phone space, and from what we're hearing, a lot of OEMs are happy in the PC space with this platform, is because it is a platform. The OEMs buy this, and it's everything kind of done for them basically. The Sensing Hub's there, the NPU's there, the GPU, everything is already built in, it's tightly integrated. They don't need to source other parts and work on integration. It's been very successful for the phone space, and it looks like, for laptops, it's going to work well too. Getting to the GPU, I think this is sort of something that's missed often, which is, Qualcomm actually has very powerful GPUs. We see it in their phones, and it's been there in laptops too, but there hasn't been as much opportunity to leverage it. And now this GPU, I believe, is twice as, you guys are quoting around twice as powerful as your competitors' integrated GPU. Is that accurate? And can you talk a little bit about what we should expect for that GPU in terms of performance and opportunities?
Yeah. Yes, it's a very, very capable GPU. We have been developing an in-house GPU for many years now. It's a very, very powerful GPU relative to what it offers. You should also expect, Dan, the industry is growing in terms of even casual gaming or casual creators, right? Not everybody has to have a professional gaming type environment. So even there's a lot of casual gaming that is taking off. The industry is huge. You should expect that the Snapdragon Adreno platform in the X Elite will perform extremely efficiently for casual gamers. We'll show you, we're showing a bunch of videos. We're showing our partnerships with all the game developers, which is not, again, new to Qualcomm, because we've driven, we have the Snapdragon Elite Gaming on the mobile side. So we have the legacy of working with game developers. So we're extending that relationship now into PCs. It will take time, but I think, casual gamers as well as casual content creators will be pretty excited. And, we're showing as an example, a partnership with DaVinci to talk about their creator applications that they are working with us on, taking advantage of the NPU and what creators can do differently relative to, things that they can support. So overall, I think you'll see a lot of excitement building up with casual gaming as well as content creators, which, one day I hope to be one, but I don't think I'm suited for that yet today.
Yeah, I'm not part of the TikTok generation either. That's just, I'm constantly blown away by the talent of young people. I'm completely jealous. I don't know how everybody got so funny and talented with that stuff, but yeah, I'm over here just on Skype. It's fine for me. So there's a lot of amazing technology in this. We're kind of going through it. I should also mention some other specs here, because I know a lot of people want this sort of the details. So let me read some of those off if I could zoom in my screen here. So for the memory, you're supporting LPDDR5X, which that's the top of the line RAM that we're using currently in laptops. That's the L's for low power. And the speed, of course, is going to be how fast it can be. It's got very good up to 8,533 MT per second for transfer rates. For storage, SD 3.0, UFS 4.0, and of course NVMe, PCIe Gen 4. So again, Gen 4, typically Gen 5 is out there, but no one really supports Gen 5 right now. And frankly, I'm getting a little tired. Like the generations are getting absurd now with SSDs. It's like literally doubling every generation. We're just getting used to Gen 4, but Gen 4 is extremely fast. It's what you find in all the premium PCs currently, so that's going to be very nice. This is using the 4 nanometer process node, and that's very popular. People love talking about process nodes for some reason. People just know that the lower you go, the better it's supposed to be. Intel's pushed back a little bit against that as an industry standard, but that's fine. But it's a challenge to do a 4 nanometer design, but it does benefit the user in the sense that it's a smaller chipset overall. It's going to be more efficient, and should pay off there. You have extremely good display support. You can support, I forgot how many displays you can support. Isn't it like three 4K?
Yeah, three 4K displays. Yes.
Yeah. So people shouldn't expect like limits on this in terms of their laptops from what they're used to for docking and connecting up to multiple displays. Of course, you have all the USB ports, USB 4.0, and that's important because while Thunderbolt isn't there, USB 4.0 is, for all intents and purposes, very much an equivalent in terms of performance, which is going to be really nice as well. There's also, of course, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, and Wi-Fi 7, which is another funny thing that people aren't even aware of Wi-Fi 7. It is a thing that's coming out. Yes, you'll need new routers, but for the data I've seen, Wi-Fi 7 actually is a pretty big jump in performance and the ability to basically manage traffic with smarter lanes and wider lanes for that traffic. So once you upgrade your infrastructure to support it, this will be actually very performant. Of course, 5G will be there. My favorite thing, my favorite part about ARM devices have always been the inclusion of 5G. As someone who has to travel frequently and work from the back of cabs and airports and everything, 5G always on. People always tell me, like, just use your phone. I'm like, yes, you can. But there's nothing beats just opening that lid and you're just online. There is no waiting. There's no connection. You can close the lid. Oh, I forgot something. Open it up again. You're not draining your phone battery. It's a different experience. Not everybody needs it, but for people who do want it, it's a game changer. If you're only using your 5G once in a while, yeah, you can tether. That's fine. But I love having the 5G built in. Of course, yeah, you have the aptX audio built in as well. So the audio has always been a big thing here. Cameras support up to 4K HDR video capture, single camera up to 64 megapixel, dual cameras too with 36 megapixels. So there's a lot going on here. Now, talking about I think the big thing that people want to know about is the performance and the efficiency, right? So I've heard, kind of internally that, like with the Nuvia team and Qualcomm and with the Orion chipset, that you guys almost sort of overachieved what you were initially anticipating you can do here. Is that correct? And could you talk a little bit about the performance and efficiency in terms of what we should be expecting? I remember during the presentation there was some quotes that this can beat like your competitor's 14-core laptop processor, which I assume is Intel, and but using only a third of the power to do it, which is a massive thing. So can you talk a little bit about that, what users can expect in actually terms of performance compared to kind of what's out there? Maybe even, I think people really want to know how does it stack up maybe to even Apple's chips?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dan. Thanks for summarizing. I think a lot of the capabilities that you summarized very, very well. From a performance standpoint, yes, we support 12 cores, and the CPU cores run at a frequency of up to 3.8 gigahertz. With something interesting which we support is the dual core boost technology, which is where two of the cores run all the way up to 4.2, 4.3 gigahertz in some cases. And so we're very excited about what the performance offers. Yes, we're a lot more efficient than what some of our competitors support. Like I mentioned earlier, we do support a lot of the performance at peak power, at peak performance at a third of the power. So very excited about. Obviously, that effectively means longer battery life and giving users exactly what they want. So when you look at Snapdragon X Elite, the excitement is around you get the best performance per watt machine with a really long battery life. You get the best AI capabilities and you get the best user experience. And as you correctly highlighted, having a 5G laptop is just game changing, right? I use one every day. And for folks that travel so much, you just open the lid and it just connects. It doesn't matter, right? At the minute I land, I open my laptop, it synchronizes all of the work I've done, and off you go, right? So yes, it's a capability that I think once you start using, it's very hard to get away from using a 5G laptop.
We should also mention for enterprise, it's kind of critical, not just for the convenience of having their employees always connected out in the field, but also for security reasons. The standards for 5G is much higher than Wi-Fi, which is susceptible to intercepts. And I think we've all been on Wi-Fi networks that seem a little sketchy. People want to use VPNs to get around that as a tunnel to protect themselves, whereas using 5G for security reasons for enterprise has always been a big driver for that usage. So the performance sounds amazing. I'm hoping, and I know you won't speak to this because it's too early, but I'm hoping we're going to get the dream device eventually, the Surface Pro 10, which will have iPad-like performance and efficiency, but all the stuff that Microsoft has done with pen and inking and having 5G in there and this thin kind of tablet device. It seems to me that this platform is going to be able to actually deliver on that dream. Now, we'll have to wait and see what happens. In terms of OEMs, I don't know, can you speak to, what you're expecting? I believe we heard devices will start be available around mid 2024, which is something I've been calling for a while now. I just want to say that was always my estimate was when we would see this. But can you talk about hardware, what you're expecting from your partners, and what users can expect, basically?
Then we're obviously huge excitement from everybody across in the industry on Snapdragon X Elite. We've got it's a very tight collaboration with Microsoft that we're working with. We're working with many of the OEM partners, almost all the OEM partners you can imagine. So very excited about how they're endorsing the platform and the kind of partnership we have with them. It goes beyond just the OS partners as well as OEMs, where the channel partners are excited. When you look at a channel where consumers try to go buy PCs, they just can't wait to get these PCs on shelf. So a lot of excitement from channel partners, a lot of excitement from enterprises. I mean, I've personally talked to so many of the Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 CIOs. A huge amount of excitement. I mean, these guys can't wait to bring in these laptops as a part of their fleet. It has all the modern management of IT that it supports. It has obviously will enable 5G. It makes their life a lot easy. So battery life and just how we're enabling these devices. So overall, like I said, the industry excitement is huge, and I think everybody should be super excited about getting their hands on one of these PCs.
Awesome. And I guess as we wrap this up, I just want to quickly ask, what happens with the Snapdragon 8cx series? Or is that going to be continued to be used, but for the different tiers, the pricing tiers of devices? Or is that going to be faded out eventually, and we're just going to start to rely on the Orion CPUs?
Yeah. We obviously, for us, this was game changing enough. We wanted to make sure that we're setting an industry standard that hasn't ever been set before. That's why we did a lot of research ourselves to figure out how we should introduce these devices to market. We wanted to make sure we're setting the bar with respect to performance and AI and what exactly this is going to do. So that's why we went with the Snapdragon X Elite. And hence, and before we announced the X Elite, we announced the X platform, which will have sort of an umbrella term for a lot of devices to come. But I wish I could tell you a lot more about what else is in what we've got in our back pocket. But all I can say is the excitement is huge internally for us, and we can't wait to bring devices out to market.
Sounds great. I know we're looking forward to it, and Zach is too, as well as all us ARM folks. And hopefully, I know Microsoft has been a big part of this. We're hearing rumors of a refresh for Windows next year, which may be even more optimized for ARM. Of course, AI is going to be a really big part of that as well. And it looks like this processor is going to fit in that this platform fit right into that peak shift. And I know the CEO of Qualcomm has noted that we see 2020. You guys see 2024 as a critical juncture for ARM on devices. This is going to be the moment, basically. So I believe that too. I think this performance is finally going to be what people wanted, because it seems like you're going beyond what people have expected. So it should be very exciting. We'll be, of course, following the story very closely over the next few months as we hear more. Is there anything else you want to wrap up with?
Yeah, Dan, just all I can say is we're very excited. We can't wait for what we have with the Snapdragon X Elite and the excitement that it's going to bring to the industry. So again, really looking forward to this, the performance and the power efficiency, the battery life, the game-changing AI performance, as well as all these user experience. We're very excited about bringing these platforms to market.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thank you for joining us again. Very excited about this announcement, and I know our audience as well too, and we appreciate your time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Qualcomm of the 8cx Gen 3 and the 7C and stuff, and I guess they're phasing that out in favor of the X series stuff. But hey, I guess that we'll have to wait and see what happens there. So that pretty much does it for this episode of the Windows Central podcast. If you are listening live, we will do a little bit of Q&A now. But if you're not, thank you for tuning in. We will have an episode next week as always. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye-bye. Excuse me. Right, there we go. The show is done. And if you have any questions in the chat, feel free to now ask. But if you don't have any questions, then I guess I'll be heading off. So, yes, I'll let you get some questions in. Well, the next version of Windows includes state separation. It will depend on the hardware you buy, I think. I don't think any existing install of Windows will be state separated. Do you hear any info around a refresh for the Windows DTK to an X Elite chip? So what you're asking there, I think, is Microsoft planning to upgrade the Windows dev kit with a newer processor? To my knowledge, no, not currently. That might happen next year. I've not heard anything specific, but I do know that Microsoft is planning to restock the Windows dev kit 2023, which is the dev kit with the HCX Gen 3. That, to my knowledge, is expected to be restocked in the next few months. It's been out of stock for a while, and I reached out to Microsoft to ask because they mentioned it on stage at the Qualcomm Summit, so I assumed that would be weird to talk about if they didn't intend to make more of them. And I asked, and they said, yeah, they will restock that model at some point. Do you think Surface is in danger of being discontinued? No. The worst that has happened to Surface has already happened. Panos Panay has left, and they've reduced the Surface portfolio. We're already seeing the effects of those decisions. This year we got barely any new Surface devices, and next year we're getting. Next year will be more interesting because finally we're getting a massive update to the Surface laptop. Like I said, we'll talk more about that closer, at a later date. But no, I do not think Surface is in danger of being discontinued. If anything, they continue to reduce the portfolio until it's just Surface Pro and Surface Laptop, but I don't see that happening. Microsoft has... The problem with Surface is that it was too experimental. Well, problem. I saw it as a benefit, but as a business, Microsoft sees it as a problem. There are Surface devices that do sell well. The Surface Pro, the Go series, and the Surface Laptop, I think, all do quite well for Microsoft. And so they are focused primarily on making those better now versus experimental stuff like the Duo. That won't be the case forever. I think they will go back to more experimental stuff. But as of right now, they seem to be entirely focused on embedding AI experiences into the most popular Surface stuff. And that's Pro, Laptop, and Goes. I have a Surface Go 2 which has been great. The Surface Go 4 looks like a big performance jump, but I'm wondering, do I hang on for the 11-inch Surface Pro, and is that still being launched, and if so, when? The 11-inch Surface Pro, to my knowledge, is still planned. It was just postponed a lot. I think there was this idea that it might launch with the Surface Pro 10. I don't think that will be the case. I think, if anything, we will see it with the Surface Pro 11. Whether that's in 2025 or 2026, I do not know. But it won't be 2024. That's when Surface Pro 10 is, and to my knowledge, the 11-inch Surface Pro is not destined to ship with the Surface Pro 10. But it is something they have looked at, they've conceptualized, they want to do. I just think it's happening later than they originally intended to do it. What do you think personally about the Snapdragon X Elite? I think it's a fantastic chip. It's the chip we've been waiting for. It's the chip that puts Windows and ARM on the map, that makes it a viable competitor with Intel and AMD, as well as Apple Silicon. Yes, and obviously it's this foundation for the next version of Windows. Not to say it will only run exclusively on X Elite chips, of course, but a lot of what Microsoft is building in regards to AI features was inspired by the tech Qualcomm was building into this chip. Will the new ARM system on a chip allow upgradable RAM, SSDs, etc. on laptops, or going the Mac route? I would guess it's going the Mac route. I don't know of any ARM processor that allows for upgradable RAM and stuff. Consumer ARM chip, that is. Although that's not for certain. I'm just assuming that. That's a good question. We will reach out to Qualcomm and ask, but I would be surprised if they allow for custom RAM and SSD upgrades and stuff. Satya Nadella agreed it was a mistake to discontinue Windows Phone. Do you think they are planning to get into it again with another Windows 11 based mobile OS or continue Surface Duo line? No. If Microsoft was serious about mobile, they would have released the Surface Duo 3 by now. And they haven't. So no, I think, and also that ship has sailed in regards to Windows on phones. The only scenario where I can see that making sense is if they go all in on web apps, because UWP, for lack of a better term, is dead. That was Microsoft's mobile app platform, and they don't have one anymore. The current app platform for Windows is legacy desktop app platform or web. Those are the only two choices, and only one of those works well on a phone size that is, a screen size that's less than 6 inches or 7 inches. So they would have to go all in on web, which isn't that out of left field. Obviously, Microsoft has been quite keen on competing with Chrome OS for a while. Now, Chrome OS isn't a mobile platform, I know, but it is very much a web platform, and web can adapt to run on phones. Now, it doesn't run very well, I don't think, versus running native apps, but when you haven't got a choice, beggars can't be choosers. If that's the only app platform you've got, then you've got to run with it. That obviously assumes that they want to run within a mobile platform, which I don't think they do. Do you think that reported AMD and NVIDIA ARM chips will be comparable to the performance of the SDX series? I have no idea. I did see that report. We'll probably talk about that more next week. But AMD and NVIDIA are rumored to be joining the Windows and ARM race in 2025. Again, I don't know what they've got up their sleeves. I'm not entirely sure what NVIDIA is doing these days with ARM. I know they were doing Integra chips before, but they weren't, to my knowledge, very good. I don't know if do they still make Tegra? I don't think they do. Could be wrong about that. NVIDIA Tegra. Let's see here. Oh, this is a Tegra 4 2013, Tegra 4i, Tegra K1 2015. I don't think they've made one in a while. Oh no, I lied. No, they still make them, but I don't know what they're used in. Probably servers and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Right, where's my chat gone? There it is. Do you think panels could ever come back to the Surface team? I mean, yeah. I don't. It's. I mean, from a like a. Yeah, I mean, yes, he could come back, theoretically, but I don't think he will. I think, rarely, a lot of people would view that as going backwards career-wise, right? Unless they gave him a higher level role at Microsoft above what he had before. I mean, how much higher can you go before you're knocking at the CEO's door? I don't know. But yeah, I don't think he will. I'm sure he could have departed on better terms with Microsoft, to be honest, considering what we know about his departure and how he was a little bit grumpy about Microsoft cutting Surface budgets and also their sudden interest in AI and trying to force that into every single product Microsoft has ever thought about. He probably wasn't too keen on the whole thing, and so his departure may have been a little bit less smooth than it could have been. So I don't know if he'd even want to go back. But I guess we'll see how he feels at Amazon, because I don't know if Amazon's going to be any better for him. They're also focused on AI, and now he has to build crap speakers. I know, to be fair, with panels there, he might build like a speaker with 2 screens or something. I don't know. He'll build the most beautiful speaker, let's be fair. It just won't sound very good. That's probably not fair. Do you think Windows 10 Mobile would have survived if it started shipping on laptops? In fact, I think I remember somebody reported that was a plan in 2017. So what I think you might be thinking of is Windows Core OS, which was birthed from the ashes of Windows Mobile, if you will. It was a lighter version of Windows, more modular for sure, and it came from the sort of same place as Windows Mobile came from. But the plan wasn't to run Windows 10 Mobile on laptops. I think there was the idea that it could run on tablets, but that never came to be. Microsoft preferred desktop on tablets for some reason. I don't know why. But no, even if they were planning to launch Windows 10 Mobile on laptops, I do not think it would have helped. Windows 10 Mobile was rubbish in comparison to Windows Phone 8, at least, and not as good as Windows 10 functionally for it to make any sense on a laptop. So no. When are we going to start seeing Windows 12 development / design pieces on Windows Insider? You probably won't see them until Microsoft is ready to announce them. Windows 11 you didn't see until June 2021, and it was unveiled in June 2021. There's a reason for that, and it's because Microsoft likes the element of surprise, and the Insider program is quite detrimental to that. And so with big stuff like that, they often keep them under wraps until as late as possible, and how they do that is via a process called undocking. What that means is the features that they are working on are detached from the OS. They can be built independently from the OS, and you can compile a build without that stuff in there. Internally, they use tools to dock these features so they can build them in specific branches, or even in branches where they're not there, then they can enable the features and dock them and reveal them to the engineers who are working on them. But then, if a build leaks, luckily for them, and depending on the branch, of course, but most branches won't have the special features they're working on. So if it leaks, all the special features are not part of the leak, right? Unless they leak the components as well, which I don't think is technically possible. Or if it is, it's very unlikely. So that's why you don't see anything until Microsoft is ready. Unfortunately for Microsoft, at the very end of development, there's a process where they merge all the changes into the final branch. And what we saw with Windows 11 was a few weeks before the announcement was that leak 21996, which was a release release branch build with most but not all of the new features. I say most. It was certainly maybe some of 50%. Let's say half of the new features. It had the new center taskbar and the start menu and stuff, right? That's unfortunate for Microsoft, but that's a process that just needs to happen for there to be an RTM, because they have a build that's RTM, but then they also have things that come after. And so if that happens again, then maybe we'll see some of it before they're ready to announce. But it won't be a long delta between that and when the event is. It will probably be a few weeks, if anything. That assumes a leak will even happen. It might not, so... Do you know how GPU support will work on ARM with emulated drivers or ARM-specific ones, as I assume they will need to be needed if external GPUs are to be supported? I'm not sure if external GPUs are supported. Dedicated GPUs are supported. I see what you mean by external. I guess technically it would count as external. I think NVIDIA's working on native drivers for this. And it's an NVIDIA thing. Like, NVIDIA's in on it. It's not like Qualcomm's just working behind NVIDIA's back. NVIDIA are, to my knowledge, part of this plan. And so the drivers ideally would be native to ARM, right? They won't be emulated. Do you still have a Service Hub 2S? And if yes, are you still using it? I do have one. And I mean, I use it as much as, as you could possibly use a Surface Hub 2S at home. And the answer is not a lot. It's a very pretty ambient computing device for sure, but I don't use it for much more than meetings sometimes. Are there any plans for a Surface Pro with a larger screen size? I don't think so. I think 13 inches is their max, at least for now. We'll see if Apple popularizes a 14 or 15 inch iPad before we see Surface do one. But no, I think we're going to stick with 13 inch for the larger size and 11 inch for the smaller size when they eventually get around to doing that. All right, if that's everything, I'm going to head off. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will be back next week. Not sure if it'll be on Friday. And I think we're trying to change the day from Friday to Thursdays because Thursdays are just easier for both of us. But follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated on whenever we are going live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.